Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Goblins and Growlers Podcast. I'm not Josh Maltby at Black Cloak DM. I am, in fact, a Brandon Dingus at Way of Brandalore on various social media. Josh is taking the rest of his G&G mandated PTO for the year, so he's not here today. But instead, we've traded up, and we've got Inver back with us.
It's me?
Yes, it's you. It's you. And you want to tell everybody where they can find you on the social medias and such.
Oh, yeah. Aside from finding me at the local home games in Richmond, Virginia, where we build inclusive tabletop role-playing community, you can find me on most social medias at Inverlock, spelled weirdly. Figure it out.
You shill.
Kettle.
Yeah, for anybody listening and not watching the video, it's Inverloch is the weird spelling. But a couple things to promo essentially too at the top of this show. First is we are going to be, this is the last episode that comes out before, but we are going to be at PAX Unplugged in Philadelphia, Goblins and Growlers, in a very unofficial capacity as attendees, going around and chatting with folks and networking. It's kind of like what we did last year. But if you're going to be at PAX Unplugged and you see us walking around, like me, an old man walking around with a selfie stick or something like that, feel free to come and say hello to us and ask us about Goblins and Growlers so we can record ourselves explaining it to you for a good promotional video.
How much renown do I get if I come to the booth? Or actually there's no booth. How much notoriety points do I get if I find you at the con and say hi?
+3.
+3? That's pretty good.
Yeah, I'll give you a printed out coupon. Which
and
now
listener,
I feel
you
like I
didn't
have
see
to do.
It, but Brando flashed his 3-day badge just to the camera. Just in case you were wondering how long he's going to be there. It's the full 3 days. You get 3 days of Brando.
Although last year, I think because it was we were there, and I think on Sunday we left the Airbnb and went back over there for like an hour and a half and just said our goodbyes to people and then started driving back to Virginia. And it took like 6 hours.
Who stays at the con on Sundays?
Yeah, man, you got to beat that traffic getting out of the city. Ask me sometime to complain about Philadelphia traffic on a Saturday night, and I'll just take your ear off from it. And I wasn't even driving.
That's not the topic for today, though.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
No, it's not the topic for today. Other thing is subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. I'm experimenting with taking these episodes and breaking them down into smaller, more digestible chunks to make it easier for folks to listen to them. And also check us out on the Patreon, patreon.com/goblinsgrowlers for bonus episodes of the Goblins and Growlers podcast every week. Every week we're slaving over this, trying to get these things out. So I think
in case you need more digestible chunks in your life.
Yeah. Well, like we're recording this on the Monday before Thanksgiving, so you got to prime your stomach for lots of digestion. But I think that's all the promo stuff that we've got to get out at this point, and we can actually get into talking about a regular stuff. We decided to do a little bit of a news roundup, maybe with a little bit of an AI bent this week. And I know, gosh, you guys don't talk about AI enough. Thank God you're talking about it. I think we've had like 2 episodes that touched on it in the last couple of months, but I think that just really speaks to just how pervasive / nuisance like it's becoming in the tabletop industry. And I know you were super eager to talk about this, so I'm just going to shut up for a minute.
I mean, I am eager to talk about it. I think it's been a really sensitive subject for a lot of people. I actually just gave a speech at, not a speach. I attended this kind of like, it was a round table. We'll call it it was a round table with a bunch of professors at VCU, Com Arts, and they were talking about how AI is being used in teaching practices, and there was a lot of confrontation from the students because rightly so, they're all artists, right? They all see AI taking away like potential jobs and stuff like that. So I'm kind of uniquely primed to talk about this topic now, even though there's no real like legal. Okay, sorry, I brought up the L word. So now I have to talk about the disclaimer. Hey, everyone, my name is Inver, and I have a real human name, but you don't need to know that right now because the important part of this message is that I'm not your lawyer. I am a lawyer. I'm not your lawyer. Anything I say is my personal opinion, not the opinion of my firm. I am but a human who makes mistakes, so please don't take this as legal advice. And if you have a nuanced use case especially if you have a nuanced use case pertaining to this topic, I encourage you to reach out to an attorney and retain them so that they can give you legal advice that is tuned to you. Okay, with all that said.
Yeah. Noah, is that you?
No, I have to do it because there's so many times where
I know. I'm just used to talking to him and doing some one-off recordings with him, and he does the same thing. He just sighs and he's like, I may be a lawyer, but I'm not your lawyer. I may be a lawyer, but I'm a cool lawyer, but I'm not your lawyer.
He has
Noah Downs.
He has it down pat, and like mine is less down pat. That's okay. What I'm really just trying to tell people is that you can't take anything you hear online as fact, especially when it doesn't encompass all of the other contextual facts that you're dealing with.
I think your ass is sufficiently covered.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, where were we?
Talking about AI and how I can't offer any real legal advice on it because it is so new to the courts, and like even the copyright office and trademark offices are still figuring it out. Like we have some consensus that AI isn't copyrightable in the United States, but that is diverging wildly based on the countries that you're registering the works in, right? So it really depends on where you're located and what you're trying to do and blah, 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 blah. We're not going to get into the law. Okay.
Yeah. And it's funny because I think the last time Josh and I talked about this, I think the episode was responsible uses of AI ? I think that was what I titled it. And we were digging around trying to think of like, what are ways that you can use AI, maybe in sort of a non-artistic, non-creative way to help you facilitate your game, maybe using it for like encounter generation or something like that. But you know, on the whole, it just seems like everybody, it's funny because I was having a conversation about this at work today because, you know, many people know I work in the writing and editing space professionally. And I was talking with one of my direct reports today and they were like, oh, you know, I'm just really curious to get your read on this. Is like, what do you think AI is going to do to, you know, her question was sort of like our industry, but also like my job, et cetera, like our company, that kind of thing. And I reflected on it for a minute while we were talking, and where I ended up was, and it was because like, and some of what I said was actually influenced by some of the research I did for this episode, because I did it last night and, you know, sent you the show notes. And so it was fresh in my mind when I was having this conversation this morning. And I was like, well, you know, I think my answer now is different from what it was 6 months ago. It's different from what it was 12 months ago and 24 months ago. Because now I think, like, you know, the hot, steamy love affair with AI is starting to sort of cool down a little bit. People are recognizing limitations. People are starting to recognize ethical implications a little bit. I think it's being seen less as the magic bullet than maybe it was like a year ago. That's just my perception from the space I operate in, because now we're seeing stuff where clients are coming asking for services in humanizing AI writing, rather than like, we're just going to have AI write this and we're going to publish it, you know, because AI doesn't create, it just remixes. And I think there's just sort of an awareness now, a growing awareness among people with financial responsibilities in maybe content spaces, that it's not going to solve all your problems. Like people who 18 months ago were like, you know, proudly on LinkedIn, like, I fired my marketing department and replaced them with AI. Like, I think we're starting to realize how stupid that is. And maybe I'm looking at the world through sort of rose-colored glasses right now, but my answer was like, AI is going to change your job, but it's not going to take it over. And, you know, it goes back to what's become sort of that, like the cliche that like AI is not going to take your job. Somebody who knows how to use AI well is going to be the person who takes your job. So I guess if I like circling back that little rant, I guess what I'm saying is the shine is coming off of it a little bit. And some of the things that we'll talk about today sort of reflect that.
Yeah, I agree. I think like there are two camps to AI usage, right?
Mhm.
There's the people who hate it,
Mhm.
will never, ever, ever use it ever in their life. And there
Mhm.
are the people who are adopting it slowly and incrementally into their processes. Maybe I'll create a third group of people. There are the people who love it and see nothing wrong with it and that the output is perfect. Okay,
Mhm.
so there's the extremes on either side, and then there's the middle ground. And I think that the middle ground is growing traction, but that there is a overarching public sentiment right now, maybe not in the next 5 years, but right now there's an overarching public sentiment that if I can see that it's AI, I don't want it.
Mhm. Yeah. 6 fingers, don't want it.
Don't want it. And
Yeah.
it's so easy to determine that with artificially generated images, right?
Mhm.
Because it has a visual tell. It's a little more difficult to tell with generated text, but I'm sure they would have the same complaint if they were able to capture the telltale signs as easily.
I had a client talk to me about a year ago who was complaining that some work that we had submitted to them is like, this just smacks of AI generation. And keep in mind, this was like 12, 13, 14 months ago or
Mhm.
something like that. So it was even more Wild West how all that stuff was than now. And of course, it wasn't AI. And I'm like, why do you think that's the case? It's just like, oh, the construction, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, well, no, it's just like, it's well constructed. It's like, it's structurally appropriate for the content, and you weren't asking for like James Joyce or something like that, like really going sort of subjectively off base from what is like quote unquote good writing. So I will confess that it is harder to tell, even for an experienced person like me, what is and isn't AI. But there are like hallmarks and things you can look for, like maybe depending on the language that it was trained on or where a lot of it has come from, you'll see some weird grammatical structures, something that feels maybe a little more like it was literally translated from German or Japanese or something like that, with a different, like, from an SOV language into an SVO language or something like that. There are like little things that you get more paranoid about than anything, than being able to just sort of nail it to the wall and be like, oh, this is AI. But yeah, it is a little bit more difficult.
I have a couple of tells that I'll give to the audience.
Hmm.
I look for the word labyrinth
Hmm.
always, and then
Hmm.
I look for the whatever the AI is writing. It has a habit of summarizing its thesis at the end of every sentence and
Hmm.
using very like glowy, charming words to sell the point.
You,
You
you know
know,
who you know who else does that? Every writer at screenrant.com.
well, maybe it was trained on screenrant.com. I don't know, but
Maybe.
it has infected almost every AI output that I've seen so
Hmm.
far.
Yeah. Or maybe Screen Rant is just using AI now and I just never noticed, because I get so frustrated when I try and read one of their stories.
But I'm sure we digress because there's a lot of topics to get to, and I don't want to take it all up with AI. I know that I asked you for a deep dive so we can talk about where AI lives in workflow based on one of our articles, but we
Yeah,
can
yeah, and
use
we'll
that
come back
later.
to that. Yeah, we'll come back to that. But yeah, like, we're gonna really dive into like some specific AI use cases in the tabletop space in the GGP deep dive episodes. I think we're going to do 2 episodes for that. So be sure to jump on the Patreon at the $5 tier if you want to hear stuff that Inver desperately wants behind the paywall. But yeah, so I have a couple of items here that sort of got us thinking on this topic. And this, it's funny. Like, sometimes the topics on this show just sort of like they're all sort of in the tabletop space, but it's funny just how much of a soup it is and how different parts of the space it's in. And this is very much sort of on the business and creative end of stuff. But the first thing I noticed was itch.io, which we're big fans of around here. Like,
Woo!
I'll always tell anybody, like, if you're going to write your own content and sell it, put it there. Don't put it on DM's Guild, because you're gonna see a better return for yourself, and you're also not gonna have to give Wizards anything. But they are implementing an AI filter, and they're requiring creators to disclose whether or not their content has AI generation in it. And the story, and I found the story on Polygon, And the story starts out: amid a continuing conversation about AI's presence in tabletop gaming, online marketplace itch.io announced it will be requiring all creators on the site to disclose whether projects contain AI-generated content. Itch.io's disclosure policy isn't an outright ban, but it will make it easier for tabletop fans who oppose the controversial and, they hyperlinked, ecologically damaging technology to avoid purchasing AI-generated content. And then it has a picture of the disclosure that's on there. And for people who are watching this on YouTube or
can I do this? Can I read it?
Yeah.
Excuse me. AI generation disclosure. Please disclose if this project contains content produced by generative AI tools such as LLMs, ChatGPT, Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, etc., even if you hand edited it. You have two choices. You can choose 1, yes, this project contains the output of generative AI, or no, this project does not contain the output of generative AI. And then you get to choose what type of AI content was generated, and it'll give you the options of graphics, sounds, text, dialogue, and code.
Yeah. That was I thought it was really interesting, just sort of how all-encompassing they've made that for everything. Because when you think about AI
Even
content
if you
generation,
hand edited it, is an interesting inclusion.
We'll get back to that in a second. But I think it's interesting how all-encompassing they got on this, because you tend to think in this space, when people are talking about AI content, generally you're thinking about art. You're thinking about graphics. But, it's important to remember Itch is not only a pen and paper distribution site, it's also, indie video games and stuff like that. So it makes sense for sounds and code and text and dialogue to be on there. But I thought this was fascinating too, because people, I think, at least me, I tend to forget about the potential impact of AI generated sound. And I only discovered that the other day because I found a YouTube video of shamisen metal music, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then I was reading the description and discovered that it was all AI generated, but it sounded amazing.
It was convincing to your human ear that
absolutely.
It wasn't AI.
It was absolutely convincing to my human ear. But what I'm betting is it was generated and then probably was edited somewhat. Like, it was probably generated in a couple of different track layers and then mixed together by a human being, I would guess, because it just felt too natural for it to be otherwise. But let's talk about this hand editing thing on here. Like, that almost feels like a direct call out to some of the early Wizards of the Coast AI controversies, like that first big one, which I think was in the Glory of the Giants book, where the community called out one of the artists for an image that was in it, and it ended up being this a little kerfuffle where Wizards had to come out and say, like, oh yeah, well, like, it was AI generated, but they just used it for like ideation, and then they went in and did manual handwork on it after they sort of had the idea. So it was almost like they were putting muscles on a skeleton. But according to this, even something like that, if you're doing it on itch.io, on an itch.io project, you have to disclose that because it counts, which I agree with, if we are holding that to the same standard as the community did to the Glory of the Giants artwork.
I guess AI, by this interpretation, would have to be embedded into your project somehow.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you a question. If a person generated a track for their video game, and the inspiration for it was AI based. Like, they said, okay, I want a metal song based off of this band, but I want it to be sufficiently different and kind of moody and dark and fit my kind of detective game. And the AI sound was generated. They saved it to their computer. They thought, okay, I really like how this works, but I think I can make it better. And then they started an entirely new file, and they built a song based off of the one that they generated, but didn't incorporate that AI generation into it at all. Is AI still included?
I think no. And my logical justification for that is I'm thinking about anybody who's ever done any design work over the entire history of design. You get inspiration from all kinds of stuff. Like, you get inspiration from billboards, from murals, from landscape, from nature, right? And you take that and you're not just copying and pasting that. You're synthesizing it with other experiences that you've had, and they influence that. And I see this as somebody taking that sound that they generated, that they liked, and using that as sort of a starting point. And maybe they're taking the rhythm, maybe they're taking the tempo, something, and they're taking that part of it as an inspiration, because maybe it's like a multi-track thing, and maybe they only like the bass track or something like that, and they're synthesizing it with other things, drawing on other experiences they've had, and crafting something new. At that point, I think the AI just becomes part of everything flowing into the creative funnel, rather than just coming straight out of the hose and directly into the consumer.
Okay, I agree with you. I think that there's sufficient human authorship over that first instance. What about this one? You're writing a TTRPG game.
Mm-hmm.
You have written it out in its entirety. But there are a couple places that you think need some finessing. I don't know, maybe it needs to be more thematic, or foreshadowing needs to go in the first couple of chapters, something specific instructions that you have that you want to edit.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to edit it. You instead feed it into an AI algorithm, excuse me, and tell it to do all those things. Is that AI in your process? Does that constitute AI for Itch's terms of service here?
I think it does.
Yeah.
I think it does, because like in that case, you're eliminating a sort of additional human elements that could have solved that problem. Like writing is a human activity. Writing is an activity that requires drawing on experiences. It requires abstract thought and translating that into something that's on the page. And I think if you're in that situation, because we've all been in that situation where you're writing a game and you can't figure out anything, like that's when you need to do something like talk to other people in the space. You need to talk to other folks who write TTRPGs, other folks who play TTRPGs, somebody who's maybe not playing in your group, but has been playing for a long time. Go to like a DMMD, like at Alpha Comics and Games, conveniently located Richmond's Willow Lawn, and or like get on our Discord, which you can find at bit.ly/Goblin Discord, and chat with other writers, other players, and things like that. Like you got to talk to folks about it. If you're just putting it into a machine, it's like garbage in, garbage out. And I'm not saying what you have done is garbage, but you're not going to be able to get something better by taking something that you have deemed not quite there yet and putting it into a machine and having a machine spit it back out at you, when the actual answer to your quandary is to talk to another person and get their input on it, because they're going to have different experiences from you. They're going to have a different thought process from you, and they're going to be able to contribute to the completion of your work in a much more fulfilling way, both for you, both for the players, than a machine would.
Not sure if I agree with you entirely, but I do see your impulses and your bias as a writer. And it makes sense that, there is a human authorship there, at least with the editing, which is so pivotal to what you do as a day job. I can see how the human interaction and the iterations with another sentient organic would help improve that process.
And I was a newspaper editor for 15 years, right? And there are many times when the story actually doesn't come out until you get to the edit. Like the writer can write a bunch of stuff, but it takes the editor getting in there, really figuring out what the core of the story is and what the important points are to actually get the story. I've seen like 25-inch stories be cut down to an entirely different story that's actually about 12 inches and is much better than what was originally turned in. So I think that, and at the risk of going off on sort of a tangent on this.
Yeah, and we'll dig into this later, because I want to definitely address more steps in the process.
Yeah. I think what often gets lost in that specific argument that you're making with those specific circumstances is, what is editing? Because is editing proofreading? Is it a line edit? Is it a developmental edit? Is it sort of a collaborative back and forth with the writer? All those things are editing, but no single one of those things is just what editing is, right? So I can like when I write with Josh, right? Like I'll write something, I'll give it to him, he'll come back and be like, hey, this is good. I had this other idea for this thing we could plug in here. Like maybe it's like a whole new part of the story. He's writing, but he's also editing what I've written and sort of hand in hand writing some other stuff as well. And that's how editing is part of the writing process. Like it's just sort of a different form of it. Like you're like the story is a larva. It pupates with the editor, and then you have something different and better and more interesting when it comes out the other side.
I think I'll agree with you there. There's no replacement for human hands. It's really just a budgetary concern with a lot of the independent creators who are making this choice. Yeah. That said, to return a little bit to the article, did you say that there was like an enforcement mechanism, that they had some kind of detector that they were going to put in place?
Yeah, let me see here. Yeah, they're gonna let's see. Yeah, they're gonna have a filter for it. And they're going to de-index a lot of stuff, like anybody who doesn't fill out like whether or not something has AI in it. Okay. So it's a binary decision.
So there's no real filter for it. Like they're not going to go and scan their library and search for AI, because that would have problematic results. But they are going to delist things that demonstrate inclusion of AI or just don't disclose.
Yeah, it says there will be a grace period for creators to categorize their products, with a bulk tagging tool available for publishers who have a high number of products. Assets comprised of generative AI, even if modified afterwards, that are not tagged will no longer be eligible for indexing on our browse pages. In response to a comment, Corcoran, the founder of itch.io, also clarified that if users lie about the presence of AI-generated content in their products or are seen to omit the disclosure tags, they won't be removed from the site, but they will be removed from indexing on the discovery page, the major way new games are surfaced to buyers. So it looks like there is going to be some sort of mechanism for detecting it, because it says lie on here, but it also really doesn't go into a lot of detail on how you would discover that lie.
I think enforcement is always the trickiest part, right? Because we've seen it with a couple of platforms now. Facebook put out their, we're going to caption and things with AI that are detected as AI, but then they have to go out and detect it, which is going to be generated by AI. Let's just, the tool to detect AI will be AI driven. Full stop. Which means that there's always going to be potential for false flags.
Well, and also like, you run into the issue of proving it, right? Like let's say I have something that's 100% human created that I created 5 or 6 years ago, and I've had up on itch.io, and I get flagged as AI, and I dispute it, and they're like, hey, this is AI. I'm like, no, it's not. And they say, prove it. Like, what am I going to do? It's been 6 years. Am I going to
This was submitted 6 years ago before the advent of AI. Done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, forget the time scale that I'm putting in there. But like, if I like, what am I going to do? Am I supposed to produce like an unflattened Photoshop file of all my layers, like that show that I drew them? Am I like, if it's an audio file, do I have to show you the unexported multi-track file that has everything in there? And then like, how do you determine that one of those, part of that wasn't AI generated? It just seems like the burden of proof issue is really problematic too, if you're falsely accused of it.
Well, now we have to hire people to actually sort all this out, right? If someone appeals it, or if they're asking for proof, then we need someone in that seat who's asking for proof. Steam did the same thing. They said absolutely no AI, and then there was a revolt, I guess, of pro AI devs who are like, but we can use it for code, and we can use it for music, and we can use it for map design or terrain, or like, literally all aspects of it.
Yeah.
What does no AI mean on this platform? So Steam walked it back, but when people were contesting the AI allegations, because for sure there were a lot of false flags, they were having to provide proof of how they were making the game. So yeah, those layered files or any kind of process photos that would sufficiently demonstrate that they were human authored. With the inclusion of code here, that seems like it would be more problematic. Or how could you, I guess I'm not a programmer, so there's another disclosure, but how can you tell?
I mean, I'm sure, and anybody on here who's a programmer or has a CS degree or something like that could probably answer the question.
Just like wonky code, like it's formatted differently in one section as in another. It uses spaces in one and tabs in the other, something like that. But
Yeah,
like, how could you say that wasn't two distinctly different programmers on the same project with just poor style guide?
Yeah, probably not. Like, yep, probably not. It's almost like it's proving a negative. Like it's just impossible to do. Yeah, I think a lot of the like. All right, so this is sort of deviating a little bit, but
Yeah.
I think
This
we're
is
at
the deep dive now.
yeah. Well, no, it's not quite, but I think there's a failure of imagination here, and it's the kind of thing I see a lot. I don't see it a lot, but I have seen it a lot over the course of my career, where somebody in the company makes a policy about X, but they don't stop to game out like all the way all the dominoes would fall if we've got policy X, right? So it's like itch saying like, hey, you can't do this. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, what about, how are you going to prove that me and my buddy who just code very differently didn't work on this together? It feels very reactionary. It feels like a failure of imagination in terms of like,
It's a PR play.
I mean, well, yeah, like I was trying to be polite about it, but if we want to just cut directly to it, then yeah, there you go.
No, it's a PR play. They have indie game devs on their site, and it's going to be ripe for abuse. Absolutely.
You're calling it a PR play, but I think if we want to be honest, it's virtue signaling.
There is a risk here. Have you seen Pinterest recently?
I don't use Pinterest.
Okay. Well, as an avid user of Pinterest, who uses Pinterest to inform their artwork, it's all AI gens now. 90% AI gens. It's difficult to get a good lighting reference. It's difficult to get a physical reference of anything. Animals are now being AI generated, which brings anatomy into weird, skewed play. But where was I going with this? They're creating this because there is the potential for abuse. And with everybody getting with TTRPG market exploding, like everybody can become a game designer if they plug it into AI and generate a couple of chapters and make some AI graphics and slap it together in a book. Like done.
Yeah, and it's like it's really hard to avoid the temptation for that, especially if you're a small company or even a single person doing this stuff. Like I remember when it wasn't even Midjourney at that point. I think it was just some of the DALL-E stuff that was coming out. And I was like, let me try to just see what an AI generated dungeon would look like. And it was
bad. It looks bad, but
yeah, I mean, it was fine. It had problems. It could have worked, but it's very tempting to just be like, yeah, I'm going to do that and just roll with it. Cause now it's like 1,000 times better than it was when I was trying that almost 2 years ago. So you're going to get a much better result depending on your prompt engineering on it. But it's just the temptation is just really heavy, and we really need this kind of essentially social consequence to stop people from just giving into that. And I mean, and I'm sort of rambling now, but like the other part of it is like, there's a very real idea of a person being like, well, like, I just want to get involved in the space and create, and this helps facilitate me creating. And then you have your really hardline anti-AI people who are like, well, if you can't afford to pay an artist for it, then you're not ready to create, or you need to sort of figure out something else. How much is the difference between facilitating creation and taking a shortcut? Like there's a lot of nuance to this. It's not, as with everything worth talking about, there's no black and white to it. There's maybe like 1% black, 1% white, and 98% gray in the whole thing, depending on how you craft your argument for why you're doing X, Y, or Z. And having said that, I'm very much against using AI for creative endeavors. I have used it for ideation in the past, just to help like bounce ideas off when it was like 2 a.m. and I didn't have anybody else around or anything like that. But I've never plugged it into anything I've written.
I take a neutral stance on AI. Good or bad, it is a tool that can be used for destruction or creativity, and it is up to the choice of the user for what that purpose will be.
Yeah, that's another thing that I said to my direct report when I was having that conversation today. I was like, we got to be at a point where AI is just a tool in the toolbox rather than the only tool in the toolbox. And that's where, and I think we're getting more and more to this point where AI is a tool in the toolbox. And I think maybe like, let's just say 5 years. Let's just throw that out there. Let's say 5 years from now, maybe we'll have just sort of a much more nuanced kind of AI prohibition or disclosure or something on itch, for example.
I look forward to a sophisticated utilization of the tool, because as it's currently being wielded, I don't agree with the outcome. It's not polished enough for me, at least for the overt instances of AI that I've seen. If I can't detect it, then I don't see why it should be disclosed. But that's my own personal personal opinion.
And Josh isn't here, so I'll say this because I know this is something he would bring up because we've talked about it before. But like also now, like Photoshop has the built-in AI gen tools where I can just do a magic lasso on a section of an image and then do an AI prompt to just change what's in that little spot. And like, does that count?
Generative fill.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just generative fill. It's also like it can just take. You just highlight
just object deleter. That's even on your phone. I mean, the fact of the matter is that AI is going to become embedded in every tool that we use.
Yeah. You can't run from it, and that's
why I find this kind of change to a terms of service so comical, because even if you're coding over a platform that you're super familiar with, AI is going to be in there to make your job easier. If you're creating art, the tools that you're using to create the art are going to have AI embedded it to make it easier. And you can choose to use them or not, but people electing that option and then having to disclose it later seems a little backwards to me. You're relying on the truthfulness of your users, which is suspect at best.
Yeah.
You're relying on an honest enforcement policy, which you're not going to be able to afford down the one at scale ever, really. And it does inhibit creativity on a level. I'll say that there are a lot of solo creators who cannot afford to have voice actors or artists or programmers invested in their project. They're working their day job, right? This is their hobby. They don't have a budget. They don't have a studio. They just want to take this thing that's in their brain and put it onto paper. And I can commend that impulse because we all want to see our dreams become a reality. I think that there are ways to create an iteration with AI that can help you get there, but I don't think AI should serve the final product or be so intermeshed that it is the product.
Right. But all right. So you use the word intermeshed there, right? So like, how does that square with the idea that it's going to be so embedded in everything and that it's going to be just part of the toolbox going forward? How can it not be intermeshed in it if that's the case?
Well, we're already seeing a new sophistication amongst consumers who are becoming more adept at identifying AI in the wild, which is what's going to push our taste level to an acceptable implementation structure. I would love to see a way where we could turn back time and give money and credit to all of the efforts that went into building these models. Unfortunately. And even with other iterations, like let's just talk about briefly Firefly, right? Adobe incorporated Firefly, does their generative fill, it removes the obstructions, everything that we just kind of mentioned.
And Joss Whedon keeps getting more money.
They developed their own database instead of doing what OpenAI and DALL-E did with scraping the internet. They said, okay, we're going to control our data set. It's just going to be the stock images that we've licensed. And we're going to allow our users to put in photos to inform our database. And what happens when you allow user access to an otherwise pristine database? How many photos of Scarlett Johansson are going to live in there? Right?
Yeah. It's it's like you just said something that I thought was really funny, right? Because like So like OpenAI and DALL-E, right? They just took what was out there, digested it, and used it in their models, and it's put out there and it becomes a tool for everybody to use. So people use that stuff, and that, you know, the LLMs were trained on those things that were just essentially stolen and put in there, and now they've begat another generation of content, right? It's like the Olympian gods or something, right? Like OpenAI was like the Titans, like Uranus and Cronus, like and then they begat this new imagery that's coming out from like your Dales and your Midjourneys and everything like that. And in a few years, we're
at the Fireflies and Geminis and co-pilots of the world.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Claude showed up and said, "No, ChatGPT, I'm going to do this the ethical way."
Yeah. Yeah. Is AI going to become the new green or the new cage free or grass fed, right? Like, are we going
the organic label?
Yeah, exactly. Are we gonna in a couple of years, is Steam gonna have a little banner that you put on your game or itch or something that's like no AI used, and then you can filter by that?
I think for a time.
And then people will probably upcharge that as well because they had more labor involved in it, so it cost them more.
Maybe. I could see that being a way to get certainly investor funding if you said like, oh, this is the organic.
Yeah.
This is our 100% organic TTRPG content created by organisms.
Yeah. It'll become the new like, you know, local artist kind of thing.
I'm typing on my keyboard now because I remembered seeing something recently, but when motion capture came onto the animation scene, I think it was Pixar. They started having disclosures in their before all of their films that no motion capture was used in this film because they wanted to impress upon the fact that each panel was lovingly drawn by a human hand. And I think we're going to see a rise of those kind of useless, futile disclaimers again. Futile because in 10 years after adoption has reached full capacity, no one's going to care anymore. That's unfortunate to say. I don't like heralding the doom of our generation, but it's not so much. We need to learn how to operate within the confines of it because this useless struggle isn't benefiting anyone. Reality
is reality, and the genie can't go back in the bottle. And you're right. We just have to learn how to live with it. I mean, like it's. I mean, this is the same argument we were having a couple of years ago. Like AI has become endemic. It's not like we can avoid it. You know, it's like we were saying sort of about COVID, right? It's like, it's just there. It's baked in at this point. You can't avoid it. It's not going to go away. It's going to change. It's going to evolve. We still have to keep an eye out for it, but it's not going anywhere. It's just there. It's a tool now.
I can see a couple of studios being like, no AI ever. We hate it. It's abhorrent. And I can see them being really successful for that.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. And that's something from a branding perspective that I think a lot of, especially tabletop studios, should really push.
Or itch.
Yeah, exactly. It's worth doing. Like, we purposefully, in anything we do, we don't use AI art. We're not being like, you know, ChatGPT, write me a 3-act adventure in which the party has to go X, Y, or Z. I think there's only one instance where we have any AI involved in anything that we're doing. And that's in something that we're licensing right now and are planning to change out the pre-existing AI art that the creator used.
I have questions. I'll save it though.
Okay.
What other topics did we have, Brando?
We were going to talk about, public perception of AI sours, crowdfunding platforms scramble. Pro AI creators are likely to work around loose restrictions on tabletop's most popular crowdfunding platforms. This is another Polygon story that I found. Thank you to Polygon, the unofficial sponsor of this episode.
Not sponsored.
But basically, the story is talking about how a lot of crowdfunding platforms like BackerKit, GameFound, Kickstarter are really just kind of like trying to figure out how to navigate this now, because now that consumers have become a lot more aware and discerning, like these platforms are like, what kind of rules do we need to have here? Because we also make a lot of money off of some of these projects that have AI in them. So like, what are the ethics in our part for it? Like, should we allow this? Because it's almost like, Itch was just like, all right, whether or not we can enforce it is irrelevant, but here's an opt-in that people can do if they want their
Here's an
content
opt-in
to
with
remain.
punishments.
Yeah, exactly. An opt-in with punishments if you decide not to do either. But they're just trying to figure out what they need to do, because let's see here. Let me find what I was looking for earlier.
This one was talking about a specific Kickstarter that I definitely want to dig further into, because it goes down into, like, I think it's called Draconis 8.
Yeah.
It goes actually down in the Kickstarter front page for the project. It goes into the artist's process using AI. I think they developed like 114 playable trading cards using AI within their process. Like, so it wasn't just drop and gen.
Yeah. And like how, like, Kickstarter's policy says that things need to be disclosed, but like, what is disclosure? Is disclosure putting it at the very bottom of your FAQ, like buried deep within the Kickstarter? Do you need a banner for it? Like, is a potential backer going to have to really do their due diligence to determine if it, because again, it's like proving a negative. Like, if you look really hard and you don't find evidence, you don't find any kind of disclosure that they are using, it's like an AI heavy project or something like that. Did you not look hard enough? Or does that mean that it's 100% human created content?
I'm not sure when they went full transparency on the artist process, but in my mind, ideal disclosure looks like disclosure in advance with the full facts necessary for the consumer to make the purchase, and not fraudulently inducing them to buy, as in, don't say the project doesn't have AI if it does indeed have AI, just to get them to purchase it, right? And then avoid dark patterns. So things like opaque terminology that's fraught with legalese, type 6 font, other things that buried within text that no one else is going to read. Like, you want it to be reasonably visible.
Yeah, but again, like,
before purchase.
But what triggers that disclosure level, right? Like, if one person, you like doing the coding for something, had to has like one block of code that they used AI to help them generate, does that taint the entire project? Or do we need to have,
by these terms?
Yeah. So, or do we need to have sort of a threshold of material effect for what the AI has done?
I think we're gravitating towards the latter, but at this moment in society, there's no gray zone. It's just black or white.
Yeah, exactly. Because like, I'm thinking about any coder that I know, they're like, like, hey, if I need to jump onto Stack Overflow or something and grab a bit of code from somebody else on there that already ran into this problem that I'm facing and they solved it for me, why do I need to reinvent the wheel? Like,
if that was AI generated,
maybe. But like,
if you don't know, then you don't need to disclose. I would imagine it's something like COPPA, where you have to have like actual knowledge that the thing is within your system. And then if you got slapped or flagged, you'd say, oh, but our programmer didn't disclose and we've fired them and rewritten their code. And then it'd be up to the honesty of the creator at that point.
I think it also matters, like, what is the purpose of the project? Because if it is a, like, I don't know, a digital TCG or something like that, or a digital CCG, and
trading card game, and what is CCG?
Collectible card game.
Okay.
Yeah. Something like that. All the art was created by humans, all the text was created by humans, but there was some AI generation used in the coding for the game. Now, does that matter? Like, for me, probably, if I'm buying it because I like that game, probably not, because all the quote unquote material stuff, like the artistic stuff, was done by human hands. And then you get into an argument of what is creativity.
What is artistry? Yeah. It doesn't extend to programming.
Yeah, because there's that saying that, like, that's been floating around for a couple of years, where it's like, AI was supposed to take on the drudgery so we could focus on art, not take on the art so we could focus on the drudgery. And there are a lot of people who would probably say, well, like, there's a lot of programming that's drudgery, right? And if you can find a solution, like if you can just find an off-the-shelf solution rather than having to invent the code yourself, that's probably just smart programming, right? And I guess it depends on like whether you think of that as like an art or not.
I'm sure a lot of programmers would. It's all, so the fear is based around people's jobs getting taken away.
Yeah.
I don't see any indication. Well, okay, that's
Yeah.
a lot. I see little indication.
Let's save that clip and replay it in several years.
I see little indication that this is actually going to take away people's jobs, because I don't think those jobs existed in the first place. These jobs are being given by people who couldn't afford to give them. Now, let's take out the indie devs who can't afford a team, right? We'll take them out of my argument. We'll focus solely on the soulless corporate shills that are using AI in their process and not paying workers. Yeah. They weren't going to pay them anyway. Right. They were going to give them terrible deadlines, mediocre instructions, add 50 iterations on the job to create a mediocre project. And my question to every artist that doesn't want to use their AI in their processes is, why do you think you're going to be able to avoid AI processes in the soulless corporations that you want to work for? Because those are 100% of the people that are going to leverage this technology to its maximum benefit. And it's, if there are jobs taken away, it'll be from those corporations. But I can't stress enough that that's not the job you want.
Right. And
lamenting over the loss of that isn't going to bring their ethos any further aligned with yours. It was never there to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you raise a really good point there of like, did those jobs actually exist in the first place? And, you're probably right. To a large degree, the answer is no. It's like phantom opportunities that were taken from people. They were never actually there. I think that it's much more powerful to argue about like, and nobody's really, I guess people care about it, but nobody's mad about it really publicly that much anymore, was just how the models were trained on all this stolen art. Like that actually is taking the hard work from that and opportunities that people had.
It's hard it's impossible to argue against that. You can't. It is theft. It's broad theft internationally that happened to everyone, and now we're trying to recover in the throes of it.
Yeah, and we're just
do you think
living with it?
Maybe potential deep dive, but do you think that this technology would have been available if there was full opt-in?
Like you have to opt in to let your stuff be used to train the model?
Yeah.
I don't know.
If DeviantArt or Behance or ArtStation said, hey, artists on our platform, we're developing this cool new technology that only you can use, but first we need to train it off all of your artwork.
It would depend how it was phrased, because I think there's probably somewhere in there you can hew out a phrasing that I'm not going to say obfuscates, but doesn't necessarily spell out exactly what's being done there. And I'm sure
they could hide in their terms of service and send you an email update saying their terms of service have changed and that you need to opt out before X date.
I'm sure there would be plenty of people who would have been like, yeah, whatever, I'll opt in. I'll be part of this. I think we wouldn't have had certainly as robust of training models for the LLMs if that had been the case.
I don't think so either. I don't think they would have done their job the way that we anticipate them doing their job today.
Yeah, we would probably be, I don't know. It's hard to quantify with how fast that kind of thing moves, because I was about to say we'd probably be a couple years back from where we are right now, but in reality, we'd probably be 6 months back or something.
You know who I could see opting into it though?
Who's that?
If you pitched it to Disney as a proprietary tool to speed up their animation cycle by ingesting all of their movies and reducing their labor in half, do you know who would take that deal immediately?
Who?
Disney. Immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Well, Disney already did that kind of stuff. Like you've seen, everybody's seen the comparison shots between the original Jungle Book animated movie and the Robin Hood animated movie, where it was the exact same animatics and they just put different characters on time and just animated them exactly the same. It's the exact same scene, just with different characters in it. So yeah, Disney probably would jump on that.
Animation takes a long ass time. It's a long, dedicated craft to get something good out. And I think you could put that same logic to any other creative pursuit, programming included.
Yeah, I mean, I really can't argue with any of that. I agree with all of that. Like anything, I'm trying to define creativity right now, which is probably something I should not be trying to do in like a lickety split instant while I'm recording this podcast. But
I would say giving tangible form to an idea is creativity.
I was good. My definition was going to hinge on anything that requires abstract thought that has to be translated into something like, let's call it physical. And by that, I guess I mean even physical in sort of the digital sense, something that can be consumed by someone. So yeah, I think we're aligned on those definitions. Anything that requires that is creativity. And I think it gets back to AI not being able to create. It's just able to remix. It can't think abstractly. And that's
its own.
Right. Exactly. But even the best prompting though is limited by the experiences that the machine has taken in, and like real imagination. Sometimes you can hit sort of that singularity in your mind where you've imagined something you've never seen or never heard of, and you're just sort of like crafting it in your head. It's like trying to imagine, it's like trying to visualize 4 or 5 dimensional objects, right? Like the best you can do is just sort of approximate it. But the fact that you have that idea of this thing that is literally outside the entire experience of the universe, but you can conceive of it, whether or not you can see it, like that's what a machine can't do. And sometimes that's the thing that can really push you into the next level creatively, because it's almost like an epiphany.
I guess I have a fundamental disagreement with how we're characterizing AI. Saying that it's soulless and devoid of nuance is really popular, and I've even said that, right? It's definitely not precise enough for legal matters. Don't use AI in your law, please. And it's not interesting enough to draft a full TTRPG module. But I think AI is the closest thing we're going to get to the collective human consciousness and accessing it. So to say that it doesn't have lived experiences, while I agree with you on a technical standpoint, I disagree, because it's in fact ingested all those lived experiences into itself.
It doesn't have its own lived experiences.
Maybe not.
It doesn't have independent experience. It has the shadows of the experience of others.
If I asked it to create a game based off an "Am I an asshole?" thread, it would be able to do so pretty easily with sufficient nuance and complexity and tapestry of characters, because it's taking the lived experience of someone else.
I don't know. I've asked ChatGPT to come up with character bios before as an experiment, and I have never been pleased with what it gave me.
Her name is Lysandra, high elf, firstborn of her name. Gosh.
All right.
Tell me you didn't rip off Tolkien without telling me you didn't rip off. Go on. What?
Oh, are you talking about every fantasy author since 1956?
They're all AI. I knew it.
Yeah, exactly. Ursula Le Guin, AI. The Wizard of Earth's AI.
For the purposes of people who can't see my hand gestures, this is a joke. No allegations are being made. You're perfectly fine. We love you.
Yeah, the CS and C.S. Lewis stood for computer science because he was AI. Narnia, but spell it with an AI. All right, let's call that a podcast. I don't know. I don't know if we've accomplished anything rather than just sort of like, for anybody who needs a reminder, this is actually a tabletop podcast. But we got on this tear because of how this is affecting tabletop. It's affecting all creative endeavors. But we just happen to be focused on this one. And it's interesting because what we're talking about like today is it's the same thing we've been talking about, but it's also different because now we're starting to see sort of the second stage concerns, the second stage developments of this, because now it's less like, oh my God, Wizards published a book that had, some AI assisted art in it. Now it's like, all right, all the crowdfunding platforms, which has become one of the predominant economic models of tabletop publishing, is crowdfunding now. Now they're just panicking because they're thinking that this backlash is going to destroy a lot of their revenue streams from some of these multi-million-dollar projects that come on there. And then meanwhile, you've got Itch that probably makes a good deal of money. I've never tried to look into any of their revenues or anything like that, but I think they're probably like less of a they're affected less by this than something like a backer kit or a Kickstarter or something like that. So they're just like, yeah, okay, we're going to put this out there, and anybody who doesn't respond to this, we're going to delist it. I'll be very interested to see, and they probably won't release it. It'll probably be like Netflix viewer data or something like that. If they come back and are like, oh, it turns out that 99% of all the content we had on there was purely human created, and we trust everybody because it was self-selected for the answers on that.
I think their decisions are going to get increasingly difficult. Like they're going to be forced to make judgment calls about every facet of how AI factors into the TTRPG building process. Mm-hmm. And through that kind of moderation and public consensus, we'll see some tools emerge with like, okay, it can't be noticeably AI, or it can't, you can't say it's not AI and it is, and other kind of infractions that we as a society deem are valid.
Yeah. I mean, I really like, just to underline what I was saying, I think right now this discussion, what we're seeing is the very beginning of sort of the next stage of the AI issue in not just tabletop, but just creative work in general. We're over the outrage, and now we're processing it and trying to figure out how we live with it.
Human processing it.
Yeah, exactly. But in the absence of Josh, I will tell everybody what they need to know at the end of the podcast here, because I know I didn't prep you with notes for that. But once again, if you want to tell us we were really wrong about AI, jump on the Discord, bit.ly/goblin discord. Find me on there either as Way of Randalore or at Master of Dungeon Administration. It's a picture. My icon is a picture of Megatron, so you can find me pretty easily.
Infringement.
I painted it by hand.
Still?
It was influenced by my lived experience.
Oh, no. Okay, whatever. You can find him there. Please send all disagreements to Brandon. I'm sure you would disagree with me. I would love to hear about it in person if you can find me. Good luck.
Yeah. Well, you'll be at PAX December 6th.
I'll be at PAX. You can disagree with me there.
Yeah, come find us at PAX. Like I said, we'll be wandering around. But maybe we'll put something up on social media saying we're over here right now, or we're playing board games or something like that. Don't count on it, but we might. Also, sign up for the newsletter. It's monthly. It talks about gaming news, and it recommends indie games. And I only publish it once a month because anything more than that would be way more work than I'm willing to put in on it. But it's totally free, and it also gives you a quick download on what's going on with our podcasts, and lets you know what stuff is going on with the Goblins and where we at. You should go to linktr.ee/goblins and growlers, and that takes you to our link tree, obviously, and it has all of our stuff on it. You should also listen to Quid Pro Roll on your podcatcher of choice. That is our sister podcast, a narrative play. You should also go to patreon.com/goblins growlers, where if you're a fan of GGP, for the $5 level, you can get 4 bonus podcasts a month and early access to the video and audio feeds of the podcast. And there's other stuff at other tiers, and I need to update the Patreon on some of that. So that's on me. And I'm probably missing some stuff, but I can't think of it at the moment. So I'll just close it. Oh, go for it.
Hey, listener, viewer, no AI was used in the making of this podcast. So listen on.
Not at least until I have to use the AI generated transcript to do clips and stuff for social media. So at the moment you said that, it was true. But by the time we're done, slightly not. But word of mouth is not only the greatest Ludicrous album, it is also the best way to let people know about this podcast. So as always, you need to telephone, telegraph, tell a friend about the Goblins and Growlers podcast. Please hop on your podcaster of choice and give us a 5-star review. If you want to give us anything less than a 5-star review, I would ask that you didn't and instead hopped on the Discord at bit.ly/goblin discord. Explain to me why you didn't think it deserved 5 stars so I can correct your problem, and then you can give us 5 stars. But we are about to sit down and record a couple of GGP deep dive episodes. Like I said, 4 bonus podcasts a month. So we're going to go record 2 of those right now. Thank you, everybody. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving, and maybe we'll see you at PAX. Inver, thank you so much for pinch hitting for Josh, not only here right now in this, but also in the upcoming deep dives. And you are always, all you ever have to do is say, I would like to be on the podcast, and you can be on the podcast. You don't have to wait for an invitation.
Brando, I'm so happy you were able to join me for our podcast.
And
I look forward to being on it again.
See, I think
having you here.
You need to be on one more time, and then you're just official. You're locked in at that point.
I'm already official in the hearts of the masses. I know it. You know it.
All right. Well, we'll catch everybody later. Thanks so much. Bye.